James, great to have you on the program with us. France and Algeria have agreed to set up a joint commission of historians who will examine the French legacy in Algeria. But is that enough when it comes to France confronting its colonialist history?
Well, I think one's got to keep in mind that the colonial history of Algeria and France is quite unique. With other words, France during the colonial period did not view Algeria as a colony. It viewed it as part of France. And that has had ripple effects in the relationship and in France as well as in Algeria ever since Algerian independence in the 1960s or the 1950s. I think what you're seeing right now is, first of all, you're dealing with a French president who was born after the Algerian War of Liberation. So to him, this is history. You're also dealing with a French president who, and this has also strained relations with Algeria, who even prior to the cutbacks on student visas and the migration issues in the run-up to the last French election, was taking a very strong stance against what he called separatism, Islamo-leftism, and introducing measures that were widely viewed as discriminatory towards Muslims in France. I think, on the other hand, both France and Algeria have an interest in getting their relationship back on track, both in terms of gas supplies, obviously very important after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but also in terms, and you mentioned this in your introduction, with French military planes overflying Algeria, in terms of fighting militants in the Sahel in northern Africa.
Do you think Macron is out of touch, or do you think that this is intentional because he keeps talking about looking toward the future? Do you think he is wanting to look toward the future and not acknowledge the past?
I think he's partially acknowledging the past. You've had the apology, for example, for the massive killing of demonstrators in the 1960s in Paris that were marching in solidarity with the Algerian liberation struggle. But yes, on the one hand, he wants to come to grips with this on his own terms, but he also wants to put it past him and look towards the future. And he sees this as possibly a necessary step that he has to do, but not necessarily one that he's doing with great enthusiasm.
So Algerians clearly aren't satisfied, you know, as we saw those images of Macron being heckled. What will it take for them to be satisfied that Macron is sincere?
Well, I think, to be fair, we've seen images both of people welcoming Macron and of people demonstrating against him because of his seeming denial initially of the existence of an Algerian state prior to the independence of Algeria. I think what's going to count here is, first of all, obviously the concessions that he made in terms of a greater number of student visas to France, an understanding on migration issues, and a more even-handed policy towards and enhancement of rights and opportunities for the Muslim minority in France.
Okay, we'll leave it there. James Dorsey joining us from Singapore. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.